Dear friends and my colleagues in legal profession, recently Mr. SANJEEVSANYAL, member, Prime Minister's Economic Advisory Council member, made derogatory remarks against the judiciary and legal profession. In that context, I am sharing my views. Undermining the judiciary in the name of VIKSIT Bharat by SANJEEVSANYAL, member, Prime Minister's Economic Advisory Council, a clear case of contempt of court. SANJEEVSANYAL, member of the Prime Minister's Economic Advisory Council, in a public event recently, described that the judicial system and the legal ecosystem, but the judicial system in particular, is now, in my view, the single biggest hurdle to becoming VIKSIT Bharat and growing rapidly. I have said this before and I am saying it again. Further, he asserted that he cannot have a profession where you use the words like my lord, or when you are doing a petition, it is called a prayer. You have got to be kidding me. The judiciary is a public service like any other part of the state. Let us say the doctors decide that we will take summer vacation, Dasara vacation, winter vacation, and shut down the hospitals. Would that be acceptable? Why is it acceptable for the courts? He had likened the legal profession to a medieval guild with a caste system of stratification, questioning the existence of senior advocates and advocates on record, etc. These remarks are deeply troubling, uncalled for, and betrays a lack of understanding of the judiciary's functioning. Such remarks appear less like informed critic and more like an attempt to please his political masters. It appears less as an objective critic and more as an attempt to please political masters. It amounts to denigrating the judiciary and legal profession as a whole. It is a fit case for taking action against him for contempt of court. The judiciary is not a hurdle, but a vital pillar of democracy, entrusted with the responsibility of safeguarding the constitutional rights, checking executive excesses, and ensuring justice for every citizen. The judiciary does not obstruct progress, although it ensures that the development takes place within the framework of the constitutional values, individual liberty, and fairness. To call it the biggest hurdle is extremely unfortunate. To portray it as an obstacle to the development is to misunderstand the very foundation on which the VIKSIT Bharat can stand. Rule of law, accountability, and protection of fundamental rights, judicial independence, and constitutional oversight cannot be compromised for speed disposal of cases alone. A nation's progress cannot be measured merely by the speed of contracts or clearances. It must be judged by whether liberty, justice, equality are preserved along the way. Further, the delays in enforcement of justice often stems from the inadequate infrastructure and unfilled vacancies for which the executive or the government is responsible. India's progress, not merely measured by the GDP figures for infrastructure or economic reforms, the true development rests on the strength of the democratic institutions. A weakened judiciary beholden to the executive may temporarily smoothen the path of those in power, but in the long run, it will corrode the very principles of equality, liberty, and justice enshrined in our constitution. Regarding the contract enforcement, the judiciary cannot act in isolation. Executive action and legislative clarity are equally necessary. For example, the pre-litigation mediation requirement under Section 12A of the Commercial Courts Act mentioned by Mr. SANJEEVSANYAL was legislated by the Parliament. The courts have implemented it in good faith, but if it is not working effectively, the responsibility lies in the legislative design rather than the judicial inaction. He must know that the use of my lord or your lordship or your honor is not about colonial baggage, but a symbolic mark of respect for the institution of justice and not individual judges. The judges themselves in the courts are discouraging the use of these words and replacing them with sir or madam, and many courts already follow this practice. What is important is not the phrase we use, but the respect it conveys to the institution. Likewise, comparing the legal profession gradings as senior advocates, advocates on record, etc., to vicious caste system hierarchy displays his ignorance of the importance of recognition of advocates as a senior and juniors, basing on their standing and experience at the bar. Let him oppose the caste system vocally and advise his masters to scrap the caste system itself. The tendency to blame the judiciary whenever the judgments inconvenience the government is dangerous. Judicial scrutiny is not an obstruction. It is a safeguard against arbitrariness. It is this deliberate balance of power between legislature, executive, and judiciary that ensures that India's democracy remains vibrant and that economic growth does not come at the cost of the citizens' rights. Those who aspire for VIKSIT Bharat must remember that the development without democracy is hollow. An economy that sidelines the judiciary in the name of speed and efficiency risks sliding into authoritarianism and dictatorship. History, both in India and abroad, shows that sustainable progress is possible only when the institutions are respected, not undermined. Of course, no institution is above public scrutiny, and the judiciary is no exception. While respectful and constructive criticism of legal process is both permissible and desirable in a democracy, but the above remarks made by him, particularly branding the judiciary as a single biggest hurdle to national progress and dismissing the bar as a medieval guild, amount to a sweeping attack on the entire judicial system. But the criticism must be accurate, balanced, and mindful of the constitutional role of the judiciary. To weaken public confidence in the judiciary is to weaken the very fabric of our democracy. At a time when public confidence in many institutions is definitely falling, the judiciary alone remains in which people still continue to repose faith and trust. SANJEEVSANYAL's comments, therefore, deserves to be called out. India does not need sycophantic applause for political bosses. What it needs is an honest commitment to strengthening the institutions, especially the judiciary, so that the VIKSIT Bharat becomes not just a slogan, but a reality anchored in justice and constitutional values. Jai Bharat, Jai Constitution. Thank you.